Speaker of the House and Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson joins me. Good evening, sir. And at first, I must congratulate you winning on the first ballot. And congratulations, sir.
It's great to see you, my friend, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Today, before I want to get into President Trump's agenda and the House and the Senate, but before we get to that, today was a certification, and Vice President Kamala Harris was standing or seated next to you. Must have been tough for her. Did she discuss it at all with you?
We didn't really talk about the election. That would have been a bit awkward. But you said that she did it with grace, and I think she did. And, you know, it was a tough thing to do. I mean, this was a landslide for President Trump, and we're so excited about that. And we got to certify that today and make history. We made history in a number of ways, Greta. This is the first time since 1988 that no Democrat in the House objected to the certification of a Republican victory for president. I think that's because we did exactly what President Trump said that we should do, and that is make it too big to rig. And we did. And this is a mandate from the American people, and we are very much ready to get to work on this agenda.
All right, let me turn now to the president-elect's agenda. He wants to pass some ambitious legislation. Once in a while, see what the rules are. But as I understand it, what it means is that it's not subject to the filibuster rule in the Senate. So it's a faster way to get legislation through, but it's going to make the Senate probably unhappy.
It may, but we're going to work with our Republican colleagues in the Senate because we have a majority in both chambers. Thank goodness. We have unified government again. We have Republican control of Washington. Now, I have the smallest margin in U.S. history for a large chunk of that first 100 days of the Congress, but we are going to get this job done. And, Greta, you're exactly right. The reason we use reconciliation and the reason we're so excited about this is because it is a way to get around that 60-vote threshold of votes that are normally necessary in the Senate. Remember, we have 53 Republicans, but that's not nearly 60. So reconciliation allows just a simple majority in the Senate to get our policies through, and that's why we're going to use this. It is reconciling the budget that we will pass, and that's the procedural mechanism that gets us around it. So fit into that reconciliation package is a lot of these big priorities. You heard President Trump in his own words and in the Truth Social today, where he said that we were going to do tax and energy and border security and a number of other things, all, as he says, in one big, beautiful bill. That's our preference in the House. The Senate sees it slightly differently, but we are going to work this out with our colleagues on the other side and make sure we accomplish this critical mission for the country.
Well, the president is very ambitious about this. Have you reminded him, though, and you just mentioned it now, that you have a very small margin, and it's a lot easier to be Speaker of the House if you've got 10 or 20 or 30 extra votes on your side. But you really have a very narrow margin. Even within your own party, you've got some people who might not want such ambitious bills.
Well, I tell you what, I've got great faith in my colleagues. It's a great team of people, and we understand the stakes are so high. We understand there's a mandate from the American people, and the America First agenda is something that we must do to save this country. That's what this election was all about, and all of us went out and campaigned on that. I campaigned endlessly for my colleagues to make sure that we could maintain our House majority, and no matter whether it's small or large, we have got to accomplish this mission. So I'm absolutely confident that we will, Greta, and everyone's going to have to put aside some of their personal preferences for the larger goal, and I think they will at the end of the day.
Is it harder, though, to get that done? Because the president wants one big, beautiful bill, I think is what he said. And you're basically rolling three things into it: border security, tax, and energy, and rather than having them voted on three separate bills. So I imagine it's easier to lose people when you roll it into one big bill.
Well, that's one school of thought. The other side of that, though, is that if you put a number of high-priority issues together, then people are more apt to vote for the larger package, because even though there may be something in it that doesn't meet their preference, they're not going to be willing to vote against the larger measures that are such high priority for the American people and for President Trump. So that's the idea here, is that we're going to have a lot in this. The debt limit will very likely be involved in this as well. Not because we want to spend more, but we've got to raise that a little bit so that the bond markets and the stock market and everyone around the world sees that we are going to pay our obligations. But our goal and our mandate is to cut the government, cut spending, root out fraud, waste, and abuse, and reduce the size and scope of government and all these regulations. That will help fuel the economy, Greta. So there'll be a lot of things in this package, a little bit for everybody, and I think that ultimately is what's going to drag everybody over the line to make sure they're part of this.
Everyone loves to hear tax cuts, but we have to pay for them. That, it's just a problem. And we've added $8 trillion to our debt with this administration. And President Trump in his prior administration, I think he added about $8 himself. And now President Trump is talking about these big tax cuts. And you've got a conservative caucus, Freedom Caucus, who will make a large part in paying for them. Has anybody run the numbers on this?
Well, it's not specific enough to be able to run clear calculations on it, but clearly it will add a lot of revenue to the federal government, and he has an aggressive agenda to do that. Really, the tariff portion of that will be mostly in the executive branch, that he would do that out of the White House and not necessarily involve Congress in that. We don't think we need to codify, put all that in statute. I think it's more of the preference of the incoming president. So that will be part of it, but we'll also be looking at authorizations, making sure that the large expenditures of the federal government are actually duly authorized, that Congress is doing the work, doing the math, making sure that the fraud, waste, and abuse that we know is rife in the federal government is scaled down. Remember, at the same time, we're also going to have the DOGE initiative going on with Elon Musk heading that up, and Vivek Ramaswamy is involved as well. And many other people. We will have experts from the outside coming in and helping us look at the books and make sure that we are cutting this down. And I think that we can do this. I think when you reduce the size of the government, reduce red tape and regulations, and you can unleash the free market again. That's how we had and brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world prior to COVID under the first Trump administration. We can do that again.
Is there any chance in the next 2 years, this next Congress, that the tax code is going to be revised? Because I would bet my right arm that 90% of your own members don't even prepare their own taxes. I mean, most of us just close our eyes and sign it with tax preparers, hoping we don't go to jail, because it's so complicated. And it's just become impossible. Nobody understands it, and members of Congress don't even understand it, and they write it.
Yeah, well, it's true. Now, remember, one of the marquee achievements of the first Trump administration was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA, as we call it. And that was a pretty dramatic reduction in the Internal Revenue Code. It did simplify a lot of things, and it ushered in a great economy because we reduced corporate tax rates and individual tax rates, and of course, we reduced regulations at the same time, and that's what got everything going again. It was like fuel to the U.S. economy. But here's the problem. If we don't extend those Trump-era tax cuts, they will expire at the end of this year. And so this is an urgent, high-priority matter for us, and we'll get it done.
But you could have the tax cuts yet still simplify the tax code. I mean, you could achieve both at the same time because it really is incomprehensible. So I mean, you could achieve getting the tax cuts to to encourage the economy to grow, whatever. But the tax code itself is quite daunting. Nobody understands it.
There's always more work to do on that front, and I am certainly a big fan and advocate of that, as you are. The further you can simplify it, the easier it is on taxpayers, and I think that serves the country well. So I think that's going to be in the mix, Greta. I think there will be a lot of discussion about that, and a lot of hard work to be done in a very short amount of time, because remember, we want to deliver this to the president's desk by hopefully the end of April at the latest. And so we've got a lot of work to do between now and then, and there'll be long days and long nights here. But we've already told all the House Republicans and Senate Republicans, be ready to work overtime and inform your spouses now. This is going to be a tough season, but it'll be worth it in the end for all of us.
In terms of the border, does it appear, I mean, we've had a lot of people come across our border, especially in the last 4 years. Is it sort of at this point, closing the barn doors after the cows are out? I mean, what's your anticipation you're going to do as part of this reconciliation bill? Yeah, the border is a top priority. It has to be. This is one of the
biggest drivers of the election outcome. The president was talking about securing this border as a matter of common sense, and it's overdue, and it's an emergency situation. FBI Director Chris Wray testified to Congress multiple times over the past year that all the red lights were flashing because we had the wide open border. Joe Biden and Mayorkas and the administration put out the welcome mat for everybody around the world, and President Trump's exactly right. They sent dangerous criminals here. We know have terrorists come across the border, and all these violent criminals. They're here. They are among us now, and we believe there may be terrorist cells set up all around the country. We've seen acts of violence like that in recent days, and so this is something that must be addressed. We have to secure that border, and then we have to deal with the millions and millions of dangerous persons who have been allowed in over the last 4 years. That's what President Trump talks about, the deportations or the repatriation program. And it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be costly, but we have to do that to secure the homeland. And I think the American people demand and deserve that, and it's long overdue.
Mr. Speaker of the House, thank you very much for joining me, and I'm well aware that you got a real tough job. I've interviewed so many speakers, and they've all said it's like herding cats. So I know it's a challenge indeed. Anyway, thank you very much, sir. I hope you come back.